Good afternoon, everybody. We are here for another Boys Town CSP Facebook Live, and we're talking about the mid-year school slump and how to get through it as a parent and as a child. So I've got Denise Pratt with me and Michelle Hewitt, both from Boys Town's National Training Program. And we're going to answer some of the questions that you guys have sent in, some of the common questions that we get on our website, and anything else that you want to ask. Go ahead and ask it in the comment section below, and we'll try to answer everybody's questions in the next 20 minutes or so.
Sounds good.
So let's talk about this third quarter time of year and how it's, I think a little bit tough sometimes for parents, especially kids, to just really be engaged with school and to be engaged with getting up in the morning, going to class, focusing on grades. I think they kind of lose that excitement that they've got at the beginning of the year and after Christmas time. So I think you guys are great to speak on this, because part of what Boys Town National Training does is you go and you work with teachers and classes and help them engage kids in the classroom, but you both also have some experience with Boys Town's Common Sense Parenting, so on the flip side of things.
Right.
So let's talk about this time of year. What are some things that I could do as a parent to really help motivate my kids and get them excited for the school week, for the school day, for this whole end of year rush?
Absolutely. So I think to start off with is to first make sure that you're maintaining consistency and a structure for the kids.
Okay.
That's a big thing, and I know that doesn't sound very motivating, but to be honest, kids thrive on structure. So to start with that and making sure that you have that as your foundation, I think is really important. Then you can look at those small ancillary things that you can do to motivate your kids and get them excited. It could be something as simple as being able to pick an extra snack for their lunch, or their favorite chips for their lunch, or just something like that. Something to look forward to midday and throughout the week that keeps them motivated for things. Anything you want to?
Absolutely, and I think it's just human nature, really, that we start the school year strong, kind of excited. We've set our routines, we've got our new backpacks, we're excited about that new year. And it's pretty normal after the holidays and that there's a little bit of a slump, and we probably do want to check and say, how well are we just maintaining the routines that we put in place so that our home would run smoothly, so that we get all of our responsibilities done. I've got my homework done. I know that I am not going into that work week really stressed by the fact that I don't have, I didn't get all my homework done, or I feel like there's a test coming up and I didn't really adequately study for it. It's just harder to maintain that energy. So sometimes it's just as simple as let's just reset ourselves. Let's reset our expectations. Let's reset our routines. Let's make sure we're all getting good sleep. We don't operate as well when we aren't getting good sleep and good nutrition. And of course, as it gets cold outside, we get out. We're not getting
inside more.
Yeah, exactly. So just basic exercise and vitamin D, a little bit of sunlight, those kind of things are all part of the factors. So start with just a reset.
Right.
Sometimes it's just that is we need to reset ourselves. Some kids might need more support, and so it's just recognizing that the better we know our kids in our family, we also have an idea of whether or not this is just a quick
seasonal
reset
thing,
exactly, or if we really need to reach out to the school, the teachers, and say, here's what we've noticed, and we need to work with them in partnership.
And I think you make a good point too, that it's really a whole family thing. Sometimes getting reset, because kids feed a lot off of their parents and what the parents are doing, and like you said, it's human nature. Everybody can get just a little bit of that slump after the holidays are over, and so I think our attitude reflects quite a bit on the kids.
And that's true for the teachers as well.
Good point.
Right. Yeah. So some practical things, like for my daughter, if we had a good week, then Friday night was our game night or movie night. She got to pick the pizza or the meal that we have that night. And you don't have to go out and buy anything. They could just simply choose from the things you already have planned
Right.
that they're looking forward to for Friday night. And then if she had a great week the week before, Monday morning was always the hot meal. It was, real quick pancakes or whatever rather than the cereal. And she really looked forward to that because that was her favorite, even waffles or pancakes or just something
Yeah.
different, something to look forward to. And it, again, doesn't have to be anything huge or grandiose, spend a lot of money. It's just rearranging some of those things to motivate them in a special way.
I love that. Monday mornings are so hard.
Yes.
I love having the hot meal on Monday
Yeah.
morning, so they've got something to look forward to.
Right. Smells better.
So exciting. Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
that's great. I like
Gets them
that.
motivated, yeah. And going off of what Denise said too, as far as predictability and planning, that could go as far as, let's pick out your outfit for tomorrow too.
Mhm.
So we're not spending a lot of that time in the morning rushing around looking for a matching sock or a pair
Right.
of shoes that match or things like that. Or, gosh, did I even do laundry last night?
Right.
Probably, you know what I mean? So
Right.
planning those things the night before, huge help.
Yeah.
Or even at the beginning of the week, when we think
Mhm.
about that Sunday jump off, the week is coming up where there's a lot on our calendar. Let's just go to the family. What are we gonna, what do we need to take care of? We've got
Right.
several games and practices. Let's make sure that we've communicated with each other so that those things don't kind of surprise us or
Yeah.
feel like they're
Stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a bigger stress than they need to be because we didn't see them coming.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So at the beginning of the year, we talk about setting goals with kids, right?
Mhm.
Setting goals for school, academics, sports, any other extracurricular activities. If we're resetting, is it important to bring up those goals again, but even make new goals on
Absolutely.
how to get through the rest of the year, or here's where we're at.
Mhm.
Is that where we need to be?
Right. Well, as we know that throughout the year, some of those goals can change. They might
Mhm.
change direction or something may have come up. But yeah, right now is a perfect time to take a look at those, reset on those as well. They might still have the same goal, but have lost sight of those smaller steps that they need to get to that larger
Yeah.
goal. So resetting on that and then writing it down, having a piece of paper, even post it, so everybody in the family knows this is where we're headed. How can we all help to get there? And then, of course, a big motivator at the end would be great too. Whatever that, just something for them to constantly look forward to. And if it's a personal goal, maybe making it to districts or making it to, you know what I mean?
Right.
If it's sports or even academic
Mhm.
achievements in that way, just so everybody is supporting each other.
Yeah.
One of the things that we also notice is that sometimes we set goals that are achievable. We make the goal, we all feel great about it, but sometimes we set goals and it turns out we don't make them.
Mhm.
And so there's a loss of motivation
Mhm.
when you say, I tried and I didn't get it. I don't really want to try again.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes. So as a parent, to be able to give shorter term,
Mhm.
so that, like you said, we can shoot for the movie at the end of the week. We can
Right.
shoot for. We've set aside. We've been wanting to go check out and do a hike out at the lake, and we could set that up, and we know we can.
Do it, yeah.
We'll get that win.
Yeah.
Because it again, it's kind of human nature that sometimes the motivation is lessened when we just don't
Right.
make it,
Right.
even though you try hard.
Right. Small ones.
Yep. Small wins are good.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about this a little bit. Should I use a reward system for motivation? And I think yes, but
Yeah.
but keep the rewards
Right.
don't have to be a
Huge.
shopping spree.
Right.
It can be picking
Right.
out your snack or
Right. And everybody knows their own child.
Right.
And it's going to be different based on the needs or, of that child.
Mhm.
They might not be motivated by a Friday night movie night with mom and dad. Heck, that might be the last thing they want to do.
Right.
But if I could get some extra time with my friend on
Mhm.
Saturday, or if I can, as long as it's reasonable and
Mhm.
within acceptable parameters that the parents approve of,
Mhm.
they have to keep in mind whatever's motivating for that individual child.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, the next one we've got, how do I recognize when my kids may be stressed with the end of the year work, with finals, with grades, you
Mhm.
know, the older they get, the more that becomes an issue.
For sure.
What are some things to watch out for as a parent so that you can help
Mhm,
them,
right.
you know, kind of stay on track,
Mhm.
set some of those small goals to make it easier?
Right. Again, parents know their own children, but
Mhm.
you have to recognize too, even as a parent, I have those things. I know what it looks like when I start to get stressed,
Mhm.
what it looks like when I don't have enough sleep, or when I have deadlines at work that I'm not meeting. I know what that looks like, and it's similar with your own child. If you see that they have over the year been pretty consistent, and now all of a sudden they're not,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to start looking at those things.
Mhm.
And I would start again with that consistency, making sure that you have your routines in place and that it's predictable. So when they have an environment that's predictable at home, it makes school less stressful as well. But some things, more practical things, if their grades are slipping, if you notice that they're spending more time on social media, and that's causing stress, looking at those things I think is important, and then addressing those as they come up, obviously. But
Mhm.
starting with that predictable routine
Mhm.
definitely is big. You want to add
Right.
something to that?
Well, and I would say it oftentimes does show up in behavior. You'll see it
Mhm.
in the sharpness of a voice.
Yeah.
Of course, teenagers have that sharp voice,
Mhm.
and it doesn't
A lot of
necessarily
times.
mean that there's something new. Excuse me. So, it might be just more worry, more anxiety, more. Sometimes kids will just sleep more. It's
Right,
overwhelming.
right.
I can't
Mhm.
possibly, and they go to ground.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're kind of watching that. Usually, there are behaviors that communicate that a child is feeling overwhelmed with their coping strategies are not
Yeah.
strong enough for the stressors that they're experiencing. So, as Michelle said, you know your children when you see abnormal behaviors or behaviors that aren't really indicative of who they are, then you would pay attention and you say, well, what's that? What has changed?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a matter of saying, maybe we need to stop, and it's very, very easy to get over scheduled and to the point where we're running and we're not really taking time to make sure that as a family that we have our feet underneath us.
Well, I think too that's why this topic is so important, because it's not necessarily a huge pain point for people. You know, I mean, it can be the
Mhm.
slump and the kind of down, but just making sure that you're taking that time to reset and reestablish some of those routines and
Right.
make sure, you know, I think all of that helps with
Yep.
any kind of stress.
And you have to be purposeful in that connection. You're touching base with your child every night.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's helpful to touch base with those other adults that spend the majority of the day with your kids, and that's their teachers. So if you have a conversation with the teachers and the teachers are like, yeah, we're kind of seeing that too, and then being able to wrap around that student, your child, and talking about what's going on. Now, and if there's any indication or signs of something larger, then you're going to want to bring in
Mhm.
other people to help as well. But
Mhm.
and that can be, again, too much time on social media. You've got the weather that's cold and it's the slump, and you know, kids can get depressed.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're touching base with your child on a regular basis.
And you're bringing up devices and social media. I think that's something I notice with my own kids is that, you know, in the winter we're inside more and they're on their devices more.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we've got screen time, they're really looking forward to that screen time. And so then even when it starts to get nicer outside, it's harder for them because it's just so addictive. It's harder for them to make that transition to actually get off of their devices and play a game or go outside or so do you have any tips for getting kids off of devices as a way to help them kind of reset?
I think sometimes what I was going to say
Go.
is that, to be honest, it's a challenge for adults as
Mhm.
well. And so sometimes I would start with, let's try to model
Mm-hmm.
for kids a healthy or healthy relationship with devices and technology, and recognizing that there is absolute value. We need downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Being constantly occupied is actually really stressful on a brain. that says I actually need time to be still and think and process and recharge. And these devices, they come with demands in terms of there's a response required, or there's a here's something that needs to get done, or even just a there's a response required.
Yeah.
And to say sometimes I just have to put that away.
Yeah.
And so it really is a nice opportunity to teach your kids that we're not on 24/7. We're not on our devices 24/7. So I was talking to one family that said, we just turn off the Wi-Fi at whatever time, depending on the age of your child, at 7 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock.
Right.
There's a time when we shouldn't be on our devices anymore.
Right.
It's time to sleep. And one of the newest things on Instagram is just to say, what do you look like at 2 a.m.? Most of us, not good. Like
Right.
it's,
Good.
that's not
No.
what we're posting up there. But to say, why are you awake at 2 a.m.?
Right.
Right.
And
You
did you have to
shouldn't
wake
be.
yourself up, or did you stay
Right.
up till 2? Yeah. And we had in our house, we had electronic free zone, and that was the dinner table. And so study hour occurred at the dinner table. Dinner conversation happened at the dinner table. That it was no place for media or for electronics at all. So
So we'll talk instead.
yes,
Which is-
absolutely, yeah. And also going off of what Denise said, if the Wi-Fi goes off, well, let's not make that punitive and just sitting around bored to death. They don't know what to do.
Right.
Let's make that a time where we do creative things, and bring back either go outside and play, color in a coloring book, for crying out loud. You know what I mean?
Pull out a
We've
board
lost
game.
Right.
Mhm.
A board game would be great, definitely.
Read a book.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, and it's probably dating me, didn't have a cell phone, and so 3 o'clock after school, I had time to reset until 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever was happening between 8 and 3, and all the drama that occurs as a student in middle school or high school. At 3 o'clock, I could get a break from that, and then the next morning could be a reset. Kids don't have that these days, and so
No.
we have to artificially create that for them.
Yeah.
They have to have some time.
And I don't think we're always aware of what they're seeing on their phones and what is following them home from school.
Right.
Like you talked about,
Right.
like any drama that occurred at school surely hits social media the second they get home. And so
Exactly.
they just don't have much of an escape.
Right.
Right.
And they need that.
Yeah.
It diminishes creativity when you don't have that escape.
Right.
And if you think about your home should be a safe space where I come home, all the people that love me are here,
Right.
and this is where I feel like I've got things that I like to do, people that I enjoy. This is our time, and we take care of each other. So it's okay to protect that space and say this, and you can set the time. You can decide if you want to put it for midnight,
Right,
whenever
right.
you want to say. Really, there's no reason why any of us need to be up
Right.
or at least answering even work emails to say
Right.
I will be there first thing in the morning and
Right.
I will respond to this.
I know, yes. That's what I was thinking of when we talked about carrying it home from school. I'm like, it's kind of like having your work email on your
Yes.
phone.
Yeah.
and
Right.
Yep.
How it's always there.
Yep.
And what a relief it is sometimes,
Right.
when you get a new phone, your email's not set up yet.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I know a lot of families will do here's where we park our devices.
Right. Yep.
It's just out of our bedrooms. It's out of those are places where we sleep, we relax, but the devices are in a common area where they're
Where
not
they
quite
can
so
sleep and
tempting.
relax.
Right.
Exactly.
They
They're
can
just not so
recharge.
tempting.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about too when life gets hectic, and I know for us, when spring hits and spring sports start up, we've got something every single night, and it's just difficult. So, what are some good conversations to have to make sure that I'm aware, that my kids are aware, that we're all, we have a good open conversation about, okay, when are things getting to be too much? When can you let me know when school is struggling and when you're not keeping up with homework, or because I really do think that a lot of demands on families in that springtime just makes it so much harder for the end of the year to
Mhm.
really be a success.
Right. Right.
Agreed. Again, knowing your child. Some of those things where you think might be overwhelming for your child might not be. That going to sports might be their reset.
Right.
So checking it, having that open communication and conversation. For me, when I was a student, finals was the worst. That I was overwhelmed, but being able to go to track then was my outlet. And so even though I was hitting it hard at track practice, that's not what was overwhelming me.
Right.
The fact that I was but having that open conversation and knowing your own child. But you do have to touch base. And again, clear, concise,
Right.
specific structure and, expectations at home. Touch base with the other adults in your child's life. Talk to the coach, talk to the teachers. How can I help? And some teenagers, kind of withhold information sometimes too. So, how is their behavior?
Right.
What is their general attitude? Are
Right.
they withdrawing? How do we bring them back in?
Right. And I think Michelle already talked about the dinner table as a time where we can check in with each other, and we can talk about what's coming up, but we can also talk about what we're dealing with. So I think those family meetings, we don't have to call them something formal, but
Right.
it's dinner
Yeah.
is what it is. But we are going to talk during that time. Is one opportunity. I also think it's really valuable as a family to talk about what our goals are, because there are absolutely some families that really enjoy. They're in club sports. They're in a lot of activities that take quite a bit of time, but they also pull a lot of enjoyment from those activities as well. And
Right.
if you feel like this is, we're excited about them, great, but you do want to have a conversation and say, have we overscheduled ourselves? Are we doing so many things that we don't enjoy ourselves
Things we're doing,
anymore?
right. Yeah.
Right.
We're just kind of snapping at each other.
Yeah.
Well, those are healthy conversations, and it's okay to say, we're going to carve off, this is a Sunday afternoon is a downtime, or whenever you can fit it in, to say, this is where in our week, we've said we don't schedule every day.
Okay.
In most families, everybody is not an extrovert. Some are,
Right.
but there's
Right.
usually somebody in our
Difference, yeah.
family that needs some greater downtime. So we have to have a conversation that says, what do we need as a family?
Right. And what great problem solving skills you're teaching your children too, on,
Right.
having that open discussion, figuring out how to handle it better as a family, if you need to make changes, or if things are okay where they're at,
Right.
even though they might, seem a little bit crazy, but if
Yep.
everybody's succeeding, and I think that's
It goes back
Great
to the
role
goals
modeling.
as well. It goes back to the goals. If we say our goal is to get into a Division I or whatever,
Right.
we have a high goal, well,
Right.
then it's gonna take some sacrifices on our part. But we're working together because we're working towards those goals. Other folks say, that actually isn't our goal, but we act like it.
Right.
It's taking that much time from our family, and we actually value the family more than our behavior. Our
Right.
schedule seems to reflect.
yeah.
Right. I was just going to add to that too. Sometimes you have the kids that sometimes just can't verbalize it. So sometimes you'll see a change in behavior. Maybe I don't want to go. I don't want to get up. Those
Yeah.
are, if there's things that used to excite them that are now not exciting them. Let's get to the bottom of that. What's going on? Again, talking to the other adults in their life is very helpful.
And we're all dynamic. We might have been excited about,
Right.
and now we're like, I don't find it.
Right.
It's not my goal anymore.
Yeah.
Can I say I don't want to do this anymore? And we want to allow for that in a family that
Yeah.
says it's okay to say, honestly, I've tried pretty hard at track. I don't think I'm gonna
Go
Be a
next
Division
year.
I athlete.
Right,
Yeah,
it might not be,
exactly.
right, and there's a fine line between, following through on commitments.
Yep.
Of course.
And getting out scot-free, so you have to, okay,
Sure.
maybe next year you're not gonna do track, but
Right.
let's get through
Finish it
this
out.
year, we're gonna root for you, we're gonna be your cheerleaders. But
Absolutely.
yeah, you're right, you're not Division I material, you don't have to do it next year.
It's fine to say we're gonna
Right.
shift from
Yep.
club sports or or depending on the talent, whether it's
Yep.
again music or
Right.
or theater or whatever um, our interests are and talents are. But to say, there's usually the high track that
Yeah,
says
yeah.
this is where the people who are really competing at high levels, and then there's oftentimes an option
Another one, yeah.
that says this is the
Intramural.
local.
Yeah.
Well, and to say I'm going to have a lot of fun,
Yep,
That's
and
what I want out of it. Yeah.
and it provides for better balance.
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's okay as a family to say, that's
Yeah.
actually, we're pretty comfortable with that.
Right,
If you're pulling more teeth to try to get your daughter to ballet, might not be her,
right.
might not be her
thing.
favorite thing.
Yeah.
That was my
Mhm.
daughter. She hated ballet and tap. I was like, all right, one season we tried it. She just loved jujitsu was
Yeah.
her thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's okay.
Well, and that's completely off topic, but I think it's, a lot of sports and extracurricular activities really push that high level now.
Mhm.
And,
They do.
and it's tough. I don't think we often sit down and reset and say, okay, what are we getting out of this? Are we getting what we want out of it?
Yeah.
Is that where we want to be? Because that's a really hard thing for a kid to then, always be achieving for that,
Mhm.
greatness
A
and
lot
not
of stress. And
getting out of
sometimes-
it what they want to get out of it.
Mhm.
And sometimes we see those high expectations actually start to show up in mental health. It
Mhm.
shows
Right.
up in anxiety and depression and things like that.
Mhm.
And again, we're not talking about the majority of kids, but we all know kids
Right.
that would fall in that group that says we've placed too much on their plate and it's a lot for them to carry.
Right. All right, so it's a good time to have a talk at dinner about what is important for your family, what you guys, what routines you need to maybe be bringing back up for your family, what you're struggling with, maybe, I think having an open conversation about schools, usually parent-teacher conferences are right around this time, so
That's true.
that's a good time to do that.
And to check in with the
Teachers,
the
yeah.
teachers, because as Michelle said, they spend a lot of time with your child as well. We're looking for, are we seeing patterns? Are you seeing the same behaviors that I'm seeing? And then we'll both work to help that child.
Right.
We're partners in that effort, so.
Yep. All right. Well, wonderful. I think we've kind of covered everything that everybody had. It looks like we've got a question on here. Should I use a reward system for motivation? And yes, we kind of talked through that, but absolutely, we should use a reward system, and we should make sure that, we're setting appropriate rewards for, the appropriate amount of work, I think.
And I think it's always good to remember that rewards, when we say, should I use a reward system, maybe should I use an artificial reward system? Because the truth is, a child is rewarded just by attention,
Right.
reinforcement that
Mhm.
says, I noticed and I'll celebrate with you, high five on that, buddy.
Mhm.
So there are children who really do benefit from a way of tracking their goals. So again, we've got a star
Mhm.
chart on the refrigerator that says, did I get all of my responsibilities done before I get my fun?
Mhm.
And it can be helpful, but don't feel like you have to use those, because sometimes a child doesn't need it.
Right.
They'll
Right.
respond to just the praise.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing to that is, if you have a child, if your child on a regular basis is doing their homework, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, you should not get a huge reward for
Right.
things that they generalize. But if there's something that they're struggling with, that for a week straight, they have really achieved it doing, then yeah, by all means, but make it
Mhm.
proportionate and applicable to your child.
Right.
It's not going to be rewarding for some kids what is for another. So.
And sometimes those, rewards that aren't expected
Mhm.
are the best rewards.
Mhm.
So if you notice that they're struggling with it, and then they do it well for a
Yeah.
couple of days, and then
Right.
you're giving them that praise and
Mhm.
rewarding them for something without even really talking about it,
Right.
you
We
know.
can do a sweet
says a lot.
snack after school, or we could, we don't normally have dessert, but we could have a dessert.
Right,
We did
right.
today.
Because we've really noticed that there was you did a great job of getting your homework in every day, and I know we had talked about that
Mhm.
early this week,
Mhm.
that we wanted to remember to do that, because if we'd slipped in
Yeah.
our routine.
Yeah.
You're gonna get more bang for your buck for those unannounced
Mhm.
reinforcers or rewards than you would for something that's expected or
Yep.
continually getting that differential schedules of reinforcement, you know, changing.
Well, that's a big
the-
word.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, surprising them, you know, when
Yeah.
they don't expect a surprise, and yeah,
Mhm.
you're gonna get more bang for your buck.
So I mentor a boy here on campus, and in our family home program here, there's about 8 kids that are living in each home, and they have a grades challenge, right? So whoever's got the highest GPA in the house. And so he came in this week and he was all excited because he got the highest GPA in the house. And I said, well, what's your reward for that? And he said, pride. So that's
Yeah.
a good reward.
It is
That's
a great
fantastic.
reward.
It is.
That's pretty cute.
Some bragging rights.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
I'm proud of
Yes.
myself.
Bragging rights are awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for the questions. And if you have any other questions, boystown.org/parenting has a lot of great content in relation to school, in relation to rewards, a lot of the praise that we talked about. There's a great deal of stuff up there now. And if you're looking for any common sense parenting classes in your area, you can go to boystown.org/CSP. All right, thanks. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.